Hey, welcome back to Gold Scratch. So if you watched, I made a couple of previous videos. She's real fine, my 409. That first video when we received this complete engine ready to start. The second one was she's not so fine, my 409. Well, it got even worse than that. So what happened was a good customer brought me a dual quad 409, high performance 409, all the right part numbers, 609 heads, the right block, dual quads, the right carburetors, all that stuff to start up. He bought it as a complete startup engine. And the customer is Brett, and he has another one. I built one for him in 2020. Ran it on my test stand and made a video of that. If you go back in the archives, there's a video. You'll find my 409 running on a test stand. So Brett bought two of them on spec. He didn't need two of them. One of them was all good because it's ready to go in his car, or in his car, I'm not sure. And he doesn't need two. So he brought me the second one, and it's supposed to be it was a complete engine. All the parts are on, distributors on it, carburetors, all that stuff. Looks like it's ready to go. And so he wanted me to check it out. So I could have put it on my test stand and started it, because it probably would have started, but it wouldn't have ran very long because it had a whole bunch of problems. So we already knew from the first video, I did a leak down test, and we had excessive leak down. I think the average was 40-some% leak down. One cylinder was as much as 60% leak down, all into the crankcase, out into the cylinder heads. I put a dial indicator on every cam lobe, and we had some cam lobes worn, and it was the solid lifter Z11 camshaft. Good solid lifter, high performance 550 thou lift camshaft, but it's junk because it had worn lifters. And did I see please like and subscribe already? So if I haven't, please do that. I'm always getting in trouble because I don't say it. And we just say this all the time, but it means something to Gold Scratch and probably everybody else that makes videos. By liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all those things that you can do, give attention to my video. If you do that, YouTube says, somebody must like this video, and they show it to more people, and that's how we grow. And in YouTube, either you grow or die. So help us out. It takes time and energy and resources to make videos, and we're happy to do it. We enjoy doing it, but we got to make it make sense too. So if you can do those things for me, I'd appreciate it. So today we're going to go through exactly what happened to the 409. I also made a video, I think my last video was about all the tools you need to build an engine. And as usual, I forgot a few things. So we're going to fix that today. I've got some more tools on the bench to show you that I should have included the first time. So we're going to fix that up and cover that off. So back to the 409. So this is the dead carcass hanging on a hook. I just come back from the machine shop. So in the first video, I started to take it apart. I got the intake manifold off. Second video, I had it apart. Found some really bad things. One cylinder was like 15 thou oversized, and the piston was all hacked up. A bunch of things. So next thing, completely disassemble it. Take it to Atchison machine, my favorite machine shop, and I had them. The first thing I had them do was pressure test it, because if you look in closely here, this weld, when we received the engine, it had exhaust manifolds on it. And this weld, and there's one on the other side exactly like it, was not visible to us. It was painted over, and with the exhaust manifold on, you couldn't see it. Now, I've never ever seen anybody try to weld any kind of a block like that. And so obviously we were suspicious. So usually magnetic particle inspect the block first. Magnaflux it is the term they use. And in this case, I said pressure test it. So the first thing we did was pressure test it, and it leaks. It leaks here, and even up here, we marked in magic marker, whatever, Sharpie. Even though you can't see it, it leaks up here as well. So what they do is pressure test, seal the cylinder off, pressure test with air, just spray some water on it, and you can see almost the way you look for a leak in a bicycle tube or something. So the block's junk, and that's a big problem. It would have been the right block, and so we don't have an engine. And the other thing I brought was the crankshaft as a forged. It was a correct part number, a forged 409 crankshaft, and it's junk too. It's got cracks in it, and so we found that on magnetic particle inspection. And so we don't have a block, we don't have a crank. And the other good part about it is, I guess, Brett doesn't need the engine. He was just building it on spec anyways, and he's already got an engine in his car. So we're going to help Brett sell off the parts. So we're going to give you a little demo on the parts that are left over. It's got lots of good pieces in it. These are pretty impressive dual quad 409. We're going to go over and look at the parts right now. There's not much use looking at this. I'm not sure somebody's interested in this block for a garage yard or something. What we're going to do is post a page on the video with all the part numbers, date codes, and all that. If somebody's interested, and my customer, Brett Johnson, will give you his contact information. And he lives up north, a few hours from here. Where we are in London is about an hour from the U.S. border, either in Port Huron, Michigan, or Detroit, Michigan. So 2 hours, I guess, from Detroit, something like that. But pretty close anyways. So anyway, pretty accessible. If somebody's interested in the other parts, let's go have a look at what Brett's got left over. So it was a legitimate dual quad 409. That is an NOS AC stock air cleaner for a dual quad. You can see the underside of it. It's got 2 openings for dual quads. And that piece is on its own pretty darn rare. And here's the intake manifold. It looks to be in good condition. What I did note in the very first video, it's probably been sandblasted, and the heat shield on the bottom was left on. So it's got to come off and be cleaned, because it's not a good thing to sandblast any manifold with the heat shield, because there may be blast media in there, but it looks to be fine. This engine was all assembled. The distributor was in it. Spark plug wires were hooked up. I mean, I could have hooked up power to the distributor and put some water and oil in it and fired it. But the carburetor numbers, we'll put the carburetor numbers. They are the correct dual quad carburetors. The second carburetor is the one the engine runs on most of the time. It's got a choke. The first one doesn't. But this is all good and valuable if you're trying to restore a 409. The 690 heads, one is over there and one's here. Now, when I did the leak down test, I noted even when I did the leak down test, all the leak down was going in past the piston rings into the oil pan, basically. The surface of the cylinder heads has been refinished and never been used since it's never been installed before. You can see by looking at it. And once again, I did not detect any leaks past any valves. They are the 690 heads. They are the correct high performance. They are the right number for high performance dual quad 409, 400, 409, or 425 horsepower. And so they look to me to be in good condition. That's all I can tell you about them. I did not completely disassemble them. I took one valve spring out just to check valve spring pressure. You will need, if somebody's going to use them, they're probably going to want to change valve springs anyway. It also had a dual point distributor. So this is an OEM original part. And you can see that back in the day, we even had a little place on here. When you did a maintenance on it, you put a little drop of oil in there, and that oiled the distributor shaft. So 2 sets of ignition points was the hot setup back then. And as I mentioned before, if you're born in this century, you've probably never seen ignition points. They're just basically breaker to ground. So when the points are in contact, the coil is charging, and when the points open, the coil discharges, and that discharge goes to the spark plug, and that's what fires your engine. So having 2 sets of points gives you a longer dwell, meaning a longer time that your coil is charging, essentially, is what it does. So, but if you want to be original, the engine will make just as much power with this coil. I had intended to use it if we had not run into all these problems. I intended to use this distributor just the way it is, and it would have made just as much power as electronic. Problem with points is they need maintenance. You got to, check and repair them once in a while, replace them once in a while. So we also got all the push rods, rocker arms out of the heads. The engine was totally assembled. The oil pump, it did have a brand new Melling high volume oil pump, M55 MV. So, and it was a complete engine. So with the balancer, the pulleys, all that stuff was complete on it. The valve covers all the high performance engines had these silver valve covers. The 425 horsepower engines had these silver valve covers. There's a look at the head, I guess, Alec, with the valve cover on this side of it, with the other head. So everything looks to be good, and it is the 690 casting. You see that, and so they are the right piece. It looks pretty impressive. 7 pistons are good. The rods are probably all fine. I haven't done any other checks other than disassemble them. I did check all the bearing clearances actually when I was taking this engine apart, and they were okay. Didn't have any excessive clearance. The crankshaft didn't visibly look like it wasn't perfect, but it looked okay. But that I mentioned in this video, it's cracked. So the crankshaft is junk. So we don't have a crankshaft, and we don't have a block. So we don't have an engine. The camshaft, once again, I did measure every lobe on it. Where the X's are lobes that didn't have, I think the lobe lift is 317, 318 at the lobe, and some of these are down to 240, 260, something like that. So correct 409 oil pan. Manifolds, exhaust manifolds, now they are 409 manifolds, and they did a good job of hiding the cracks. And that's the correct 409 water pump was on it. Once again, it was a complete engine. I could have started it up. So if anyone's interested, I'll have Brent's contact information. We will keep it here for him because Brent's a few hours north of here. It's more accessible to the market. We're in London. We're 2 hours east of Toronto and 2 hours west of Toronto and 2 hours east of Detroit. So pretty accessible. We're in the heart of, hot rods and race cars, basically, in London. So pretty cool. Anybody's interested, let us know. Please remember to like and subscribe. And we got to go over and talk about the tools that we missed. So in the previous video, I guess the last video I made about tools that you might need to build an engine. And as usual, when I make a video, I forget something. So I'm going to try and cover that off today. So these are the tools that I didn't mention. They were just out of sight at the time. So this is a timing light. Now, this is a digital timing light. This is a little more expensive than a basic timing light. It shows RPM and voltage and a whole bunch of other things. It's more than a timing light, basically. It's a diagnostic tool. And also the little green, if I would use those points, I would have to measure the dwell. The little green fixture here that I don't use very often. I think I used it on the Blue Flame 6 when I did it to measure the dwell on the distributor. So it can even do that. So, but you don't need this timing light, any timing light. Timing light's just a strobe light. When it gets a signal, it comes on, and that captures where your timing mark is on your pulley. It's just as simple as strobe light. That's all there is to it, basically. So, but you need that. You're going to need lots of drills, so it's a lot cheaper to buy them all together. I've got 2 packages like this with pretty much every size that you would need. And if you're going to, eventually you're going to need to do stuff like fixing threads, then you need tap and die sets. So that's the taps, pretty much every size most of the size that I would ever need. And then underneath here, a little tricky to get out sometimes. There we go. Get a hold of it. Okay, there's the taps, and there's all the dies. So for fixing threads or making threads, that's the tool that you need. Sometimes when you're working with bolts, something breaks inside the casting or something, and you got to get it out. So this is one way called an easy out. So it's actually a left-handed drill. So you make a pilot hole with a left-handed drill, and the drill turning, and you have to turn it backwards, opposite rotation with your drill. And a lot of times, just that action will unthread whatever it is that you're trying to get out. If it doesn't, then the next thing after you've made the hole, you drive this. This is called the easy out. And it's actually, the flutes are in the opposite hand as well. And you drive that in, and then you turn it out, and most of the time, it'll save you from if you got a bolt broken inside of a casting or a block or something. Just to show these guys, little abrasive wheels to clean stuff up are handy. You don't necessarily have to have that. I got a whole bunch of them, but and the pressure tested. I've showed this before, so it's a good diagnostic tool. If I had built Brett's engine, when I put it on the test stand, I would have pressure tested the radiator and the cooling system, and I would have found leaks before I even got to start it up, because it would have, I can put 20 psi or as much as I want almost into cooling system with it. And once the engine is full with water, if I pressure tested, I would have had to spend a lot of time putting an engine together first before I did that. It would have been wasted. Thank you for watching Gold's Garage.